Welcome to our second hour of Court TV Live. I'm your host, Julie Grant. Right now, we're on a verdict watch in the trial for defendant Edric Faust. This guy is accused of murdering UGA law student Tara Baker. We have the clock going at over the 8-hour mark. That's what we've reached right now. So we'll see if deliberations continue without any questions from the jury. We'll bring you any questions and a verdict as soon as we get that information. Right now, though, back to another big trial in Georgia, the murder trial of Father Colt Gray. He's accused in the massacre that his son, Colt Gray, allegedly carried out at Apalachee High School. Let's go back into the courtroom. We have a student who survived being shot on the stand right now.
Did you go to school on September 4th of 2024?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember who you had for second period?
Miss Ryan.
And what type of class was that?
Algebra 1.
All right. I'm going to show you a class seating chart. It's going to be right in front of you. Is that where that red circle is? Is that where you were seated?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember if that was the first time you were seated there? Had your seating chart changed that day?
Yeah.
Okay. On that day, while you were in class, do you remember kind of what drew your attention to something being wrong?
Something like in my body just like told me to look at the door, and then, yeah.
So something told you to look at the door. What happened when you looked at the door?
There was a kid standing there with a gun.
Did you know who that was?
No.
Had you ever seen him before?
No.
What do you remember about what he did?
He like stood there and then he started shooting at us.
What did you do when the shooting started?
We all jumped to the floor.
Do you remember when you realized that you had been shot?
Yeah.
And tell us about that.
After I got shot, I turned to my friend Landon and I asked him to hold my hand because I was scared.
And did he hold your hand?
Yeah.
Where were you when you asked him to hold your hand?
I was in the classroom floor.
What do you remember about being on the floor? Did you stay conscious or did you pass out at some point?
I passed out at some point.
What was going through your head when this happened?
I don't remember.
Do you remember being afraid?
Yeah.
How long do you think it took before you were taken out of that classroom?
I don't know.
Did you stay kind of unconscious until they took you out?
Yeah.
Do you remember where you went after they took you out of the classroom?
They put me in a helicopter and I flew to Grady.
Where were you shot?
In my leg.
So you went to Grady Hospital in Atlanta?
Yeah.
Do you remember how long you had to stay at Grady Hospital?
Like a couple weeks to a month.
And while you were there, did you have to have surgery?
Yes.
Was it more than one surgery?
Yes.
Do you know how many surgeries you had to have?
No.
Since you were hospitalized that first time, have you had to be hospitalized more than that?
Yes.
Do you know about how long you've had to spend in the hospital since September 4th?
I spent like months.
Months? How have your activities been limited since you were shot?
I can't really do any of them anymore.
What activities did you used to like to do that you can't do anymore?
I used to play volleyball.
Were you on the volleyball team at school?
Yes.
And have you been able to go back to the volleyball team?
No.
Do you still have any physical difficulties?
Yeah.
Tell us about those.
Like it's like hard to walk and I can't like move my foot or anything really.
Are you still getting treatment?
Yeah.
What kind of treatment do you still get?
I go to physical therapy, and then I get like Botox shots and just like shots that help my pain.
When have you been able to physically go back to school?
Yes.
When were you able to go back to school?
I went back the first day
The first day
of this school year.
of this new school year? So you were out for about a whole year?
Yes.
In addition to having to go to physical therapy, do you also go to counseling?
Yes.
So beyond the physical injuries you've described and your physical limitations, can you tell us about how else this has affected you?
I don't know.
And that's okay. Are you nervous today?
Yeah.
I don't have any further questions, Taylor. Thank you so much. Wait 1 second.
Jimmy Cross.
I just want to make sure.
They're done. Is that
We're done.
Cross?
No questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Defense counsel is really smart to say no cross here with these shooting survivors. This is bad enough that they went through it, have to testify in court. Smart move, counselor. Let's go back in. We have another shooting survivor. Here we go.
Blurry because it was very quick. I think I was subconsciously trying to not. Once I registered that it was blood and what exactly it was, my brain kind of blocked it out.
Okay.
And I knew what it was. It was a hole.
There was a hole?
Right.
Where in your arm was the hole? Okay. So kind of the wrist and towards your elbow?
Yes, and then I didn't know this at the time, but I had also had another one up on around my shoulder.
So you were shot more than once?
Yes, seemingly twice.
Twice?
Yes.
Okay. So you've now noticed you've been shot, and I think you said you were screaming?
Yes.
What were you screaming?
I got shot. I'm a kid and I got shot.
Okay. And what happened at that point?
It was very quick. I think I fell over, or Miss Ryan was telling us to get down. I can't remember anything that anyone really said. I might have blacked out for a moment, but I was, at some point, I was on the floor and I was laying down.
Okay. Where about in the room were you on the floor laying down?
On the side of the wall.
Okay. Was anyone with you?
Yes.
Who was with you?
Miss Ryan.
Okay. And what was she doing?
She was holding my hand. I'm pretty sure she made a tourniquet. I wasn't really looking because I was trying to not see it. I think she was making a tourniquet, or she was covering my hand so that I wouldn't see it. Could you repeat the question?
That's fine. So you're laying there by the wall, and Miss Ryan's with you.
Yeah.
Do you move away from that wall before anyone, like medical people, get there?
No, I couldn't get up.
Okay. Did you see
I blacked
anything
out for
else
a
that
bit.
was happening around the room while you laid there?
Yes, but also no. I was kind
Do you
of...
remember?
I remember afterwards when things settled down, I was looking around the room. I saw the plushie that I would use, what's it called as, like a fidget toy, across the room, and it was laying down and there was a splatter of blood on it. I saw...
Fidget toy?
Yeah, I saw I saw Coach Edwards and I think Tyler, I'm not sure. They were barricading the door, moving desks and chairs in front of it.
Okay.
And I remember when the police got in.
Okay.
I heard a bang. They were banging on it, and then finally they got in.
Okay. How long was it before the police came in?
I can't tell you.
Okay.
It was like time stopped.
Okay.
Everything was moving very quickly and slowly.
Quickly and slowly?
Time was seemingly moving quickly, but to me it was very slow.
Okay. So the police come in. What do they do?
They looked around. At that point, I kind of went off on my own.
Do you mean
And
physically or
mentally?
Mentally.
And the next thing I know, they were picking me up by my arms and legs, and they were taking me out and putting me on a stretcher.
Okay. Did they say anything to you while they were doing this?
Yes.
What kind of things were they saying?
I can't remember.
Okay. Were you saying anything to them?
Yes.
What were you saying to them?
Mainly sarcastic things. I was trying to distract myself.
What type of things were you saying?
I remember my Crocs. They were starting to slip off, and I was and I asked one of them to try and push them back on, but I didn't communicate that correctly, and so I instead ended with them thinking I wanted them to take them off, so they were thrown across the room, and I thought I would never see them again.
They took your Crocs off?
Yes.
Okay. Were you worried about anything while
Yes.
they were doing? What kind of things were you worried about?
My friend, Lorelai, she was only her class was only around the corner, and I was worried
Okay.
that her class had also gotten shot, and I was also worried that I was going to die and how that would affect my parents
Okay.
because my dad has a heart problem.
Did they put any sort of what did they do to treat you there at the school?
They put a tourniquet on me. I know they gave me pain medicine. They talked to me. The paramedic that was with me, they talked to me, and it helped distract me.
Okay. How did you...
Another precious, precious child shot on this dreadful day. My heart breaks for all of these kids to have to go through that. And what you're seeing right now, this isn't easy to get up on the stand. It's not easy to go into a criminal court. It's terrifying. It's intimidating, it's upsetting, and especially in a case like this, our thoughts and prayers go out to everyone who was victimized on that awful day. We'll continue with more live coverage next here on Court TV.
This is the story of the Richins. Eric, a father of 3, met an untimely end, and Corey, his widow, wrote a children's book on grief.
She's also charged now with his murder.
He was faced with betrayal and terror.
I know her innocence.
Is their story a tragic romance?
Or a twisted tale of grief?
The truth will come out.
The Grief Author Murder Trial. Live coverage begins Monday morning, 8/7 Central on Court TV.
It's a busy day here at Court TV Live. Welcome back. I'm Julie Grant. In Michigan, we've got the state's case resuming in the hidden murder of Dee Warner. Trial for her defendant husband, Dale Warner. In Georgia, we're on a verdict watch in the Tara Baker murder trial. Defendant Edric Faust, accused of murdering the UGA law student. The jury's been out for almost 8.5 hours now. And also happening in Georgia, day 2 of the murder trial for Father Colt Gray. He's accused of giving his son, Colt Gray, a semi-automatic rifle, despite warning signs about his son's violent proclivities and unstable mental well-being. Right now, we're listening to the testimony of one of these shooting survivors. Let's go back in.
How did you leave the school?
By an ambulance.
Okay. As you were leaving the school, did you see anything?
Leaving the school, not the building.
Taken out of the building.
Taken out of the building. Yes, I saw Colt Gray. He was on the floor with his hands behind his back.
Had you ever seen him before?
No.
Okay. Did you know who he was?
No.
Okay.
I remember thinking.
What did you think when you saw him?
I saw red. I was very mad. I hadn't even processed it as a kid. When I thought about who would do this, I was thinking maybe an angry parent, some kind of alumni that had a bad experience at the high school, terrorist attacks, anything. I did not think another student that had no reason to be in my school with a gun.
Did you say anything to him when you passed him?
Yes.
What did you say to him?
Am I allowed to say that? And
Yes, ma'am.
I said a lot of curse words, and I was very angry, especially at the time, because I thought that they were going to have to amputate my hand.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they take you outside.
And I remember yelling at him that we were kids.
Okay.
Because we were kids.
When they take you outside, was the ambulance close to the building?
Yes.
Okay. And they put you in the ambulance. Was anyone else in the ambulance?
For a bit, yeah, because they moved me to a different ambulance, yes.
Okay. Who was in the ambulance with you?
Taylor.
Okay. Taylor Jones?
Yes.
Okay. At some point, where does the ambulance take you? Tell me about your trip in the ambulance.
The first one I was in for a bit, they did leave me alone. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure to help take care of Taylor and the others.
Okay.
I remember they asked me who the girl who was in the ambulance with me was, mm-hmm. and the only description they gave me was that she was blonde, and so I thought she was another one of our classmates, Jalen.
Jalen? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you gave the wrong name?
Yes, I did give the wrong name. And so at the end, I remember I was kind of fidgeting with my own brain.
Okay. How long did it take you to get to the hospital?
I'm not really sure. It felt like forever.
What hospital did you go to? Do you know?
Northeast Georgia and Gainesville. I'm sorry.
That's fine. What happened? Do you remember being at the hospital? What happened
Yes.
when you arrived?
At first, when I got there, they took me out of the ambulance with the stretcher that was with my head, like going outward, so it was my head first. They took me to an ER, and I remember they were assessing me. There was there was a chaplain there, and she said how she was a chaplain and how she was pretty much there to act as like my semi-guardian while my parents were there.
Had your parents arrived yet? Do you know?
No, I'm not sure my parents had been informed yet. I don't really know, but they weren't there, at least while I was conscious.
Okay. Did you have any surgeries?
Yes.
Okay. And how long were you in the hospital after the surgery?
About a week.
About a week. And do you know what types of surgery you had?
I don't know the exact names of them, but I do know what happened, and I semi-know what happened with them. In them.
Did doctors kind of explain to you what they were doing?
Yes.
What did they explain to you?
On September 4th, they didn't explain what they were going to do or what they were doing. I didn't meet the doctor that operated on me until afterwards.
Okay. And what did he tell you he had done?
I can't really remember the exact medical terms. I know they had tried for
medical
some
terms,
nerves,
just
but
I need teenager terms.
they had.
What was your understanding of what they had done to you?
They had taken some cadaver nerves out of someone else and given me and grafted them onto mine because I had a bit because my nerves were severed.
Okay.
The one that was in around my wrist, and also we didn't figure this out until a couple months later, but also one up my median nerve, I think it's called, up around my shoulder was also they closed it and they fixed it.
You said you're in the hospital for a week after that surgery. Did you have other surgeries during that week?
No.
Okay. When you came, did you come home after that?
Yes.
When you were home, was there any issues with your arm? How did your arm feel? How were you able to use your arm?
I couldn't, and I didn't feel it.
Okay. Were you in a cast?
No, because they had to. I had gauze and stuff, and it had to be changed out every day. So I wasn't ever in a cast. I was in a brace/splint,
okay.
And they'd have to unwrap it daily, so that way.
Were you able to use your hand?
No.
Okay.
It was after the surgery. I had to look at my arm just to know that it was attached to my body.
I was about to ask, could you feel your arm?
No. what's it called? It wasn't, for a bit, I had trouble because I couldn't even, like, let it hang down. I had to, like, carry it. And I would have trouble doing that for a bit. At some point, I got used to it because it felt like a dead limb.
Okay. Were you able to go back to school during this time? Right after you got out of the hospital?
No, and the schools weren't open yet.
Okay. Did you ever have to go back for a follow-up surgery?
Yes.
How long after you came home from the first one did you go back to the follow-up?
My second surgery was on September 2nd, 2025.
So a year later?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
They wanted me to heal as much as I could by myself before they went in, and they did anything else because if I could heal by myself, they didn't want to put me through the...
Okay. Well, then let's go back a little bit then. During that year, did it start getting better, your use of the arm and the feeling in your arm?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me about that. Tell me about that.
So for, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 months, I couldn't really do anything with my hand. I had to have to use my mouth as like a second hand.
You used your mouth as a second hand? Okay.
Yeah. I can't tell you exactly how many months from the shooting it had been till I was able to move I could semi-move my fingers afterwards, but it didn't feel like it. Like my brain was sending signals to my hand and they were receiving them, but I couldn't really tell. It felt like they weren't moving. And it wasn't until I look at it and I see that it was moving that I knew, like, oh, that is working.
Were you doing physical therapy at this time?
Yes.
What kind of things were you doing for physical therapy?
It was...
This is so awful. So awful what's happened to these precious children, having to detail their injuries. Did you hear the awareness this child has that thankfully there was a cadaver available to transfer nerves from the cadaver into this child's body to give her proper functioning in her limbs after she was shot. Think about that, this young teenager. It's mind-blowing, and this was preventable. Let's bring in our legal analyst guest, get some thoughts from him. Attorney Randolph Rice is watching along with us. Randolph, tell us what you're thinking as you're watching this little girl testify.
Well, from a prosecutor's standpoint, this is very smart and wise for them. They are getting an emotional value right now with the jury. They're building that emotional trust with them by putting all these witnesses on who are just telling these horrific stories of what they had to endure that day and the days, weeks, and years after that. What they're going to have to get to at some point here is what was Colt Gray's involvement with his son, and that's really the crux of the case as to how they're going to prove his involvement in this criminal act.
Right, Randolph. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to hit a break right now. When we come back, we'll continue our coverage in Georgia. Also, we have an update on the other trial in Georgia we're watching, the murder trial of defendant Edric Faust. The jury has come back with a question. They want to see his police interview. So what might that mean? Stay with us. We'll find out together. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julie Grant. We're on a verdict watch in Georgia in the trial of defendant Edric Faust. He's accused of murdering UGA law student Tara Baker. The jury just came back with a question. They want to see his police interview. Let's go back to the courtroom. We're rewinding our tape back to play for you that moment. Let's take a look.
All right, we're ready to go on the record. State of Georgia versus Edric Faust, SU 24-00547. The jury has been deliberating since 9 o'clock this morning, and they have a question. This is question number 3, and it is to the judge. Video of Bingham and Howell interview of Edric Faust requested. And certainly that's allowed. Any comment from the state?
No, Your Honor.
Right, any comment, Mr. Cruz, Mr. Hill?
I I would just ask, I know yesterday we spent about 4 hours listening to the interview overall. Can we figure out the portion? I have no issue with it. Just, is there a particular portion they would like to see?
They haven't requested it, and so my practice is to let them direct the show. And if they have requested a certain portion, I'll address it. But they've just said video, so I'm going to let them see the video.
It's been chopped up multiple ways.
Sure.
So, but that's fine.
Well, they can only see the video that's in evidence, and only the parts that you all agreed and were in evidence. You know, they don't get to see the video just as is. So certainly.
Understood.
Yes, Judge. And I think total between the segments that were published is about 10 minutes or so. So it's not, and I completely agree with Mr. Cruz to the extent that if there is a request for testimony of a witness, we'd certainly join in a request about directing that. But as far as this video, it's only probably about 10 minutes long.
All right, thank you. Do you need some time to get it set up? And do you have the notations that you had in court, which are the ones that we're excluding?
I do have the notations, and if I could have just a minute.
Sure.
Mr. Cruz, the segments that we chopped up for the closing are actually pre-redacted, so we don't have to do the sliding back and forth stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'll show to Mr. Cruz.
Go ahead. Just let me know when y'all are ready. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what do you think each side is thinking? Let's read the tea leaves here. Let's bring back in our legal analyst guest, Randolph Rice. Randolph, tell me what you're thinking if you're on the defense side. Are you encouraged by this question?
I think questions are always good from the defense side because they are not finding a verdict. They are still questioning the evidence. They're still trying to figure out guilt or innocence. So anytime you get a question like this from the jury, this is a good sign for the defense.
Yeah. How about if you're the prosecution? Would you be a little nervous if you're them, 8 hours, 45 minutes, and they're still going?
You know, I wish I knew what went on back in jury rooms. In 20 years of practicing law, I've been wondering every time I go to trial what they're thinking about. And it could be that there's 11 of them that think he's guilty and one just needs to see that video to get over the hump and find guilty, or they could all be 6 and 6. I mean, who knows? You just never know. That's the crazy part of juries and how we just don't know what's going on back in that deliberation room.
Yeah, you're right. We never, ever know what the jury is thinking. Randolph, thanks for weighing in. We'll keep watching as the jury is going to be brought back in to see that 10-minute tape, as Her Honor noted, and then they will consider whatever it is that they need to take another look at, and we'll keep you posted if there's a verdict. So let's go back to Georgia in the other trial we're covering there, the murder trial for Father Colt Gray now. We've been hearing from several of the survivors of the shooting today. Let's go back in now for more.
It was a lot of stretches in the beginning. I couldn't physically move my hand. I couldn't move my wrist until maybe 6 months, maybe. I'm not sure. That's probably not the right time span. I couldn't move my wrist. It's called move my wrist at all by myself. By myself, moving it up or down.
And so at some point you went and had this second surgery in September of 2025.
Yes.
What were they telling you they were going to do?
They took sural nerve from my left calf, a sensory nerve that I didn't really need, and they mixed it in with the cadaver nerve graft they had given me on September 4th because since it's sural nerve, it's on foreign DNA. Okay. And so my body was less prone to reject it.
Since it was yours, it was. Okay.
Yes, because I'm the cadaver nerve.
How long did you stay in the hospital after that surgery?
I left the day of.
Day of.
Yes.
Since that time, have you noticed a difference? Has it been getting better?
Yes and no.
Okay, well, tell me about the yes first.
I'm using my hand more. Even if you see now, I'm actually fidgeting with my hand. Okay. Before, it would just kind of sit off to the side, or I'd sit it in my lap and only use my right hand.
Okay.
I'm able to use it more now.
Can you feel better?
But also,
Can you feel your fingers better than you did before? the surgery?
I want to say yes. It hasn't been long enough really to see any effects. The main thing that I like noticed after the surgery was now is like it's now fully healed, because after the surgery it was a lot of waiting, for it to close up and me to get back to what I was doing before I had it. And then I want to say I use my hand more now.
Okay. And you also said no, it's not better in some ways. What was that?
Just that I can't see, like how their faces change a lot over time, but you don't really notice that change in your face, but everyone else will.
Okay.
Just because I'm living with it every single day, I don't really notice because it's gradual and small over time.
Today, are there limitations of what you can do with that?
Yes.
hand? And what are those limitations?
I can't text. I can't move my thumb outwards, which you use a lot.
Opposable thumbs are important.
Yeah, I don't have an opposable thumb. My thumb can go like that. I don't have complete independent finger function. If you see, I can't move my fingers.
So you can't move one at a time?
Yeah, they can move together, but which makes doing a lot of fine motor tasks extremely hard. I can't tie my shoes.
How about
like that.
Pain? Is there any pain today?
Today, no. It was after the shooting, I had a lot of pain, and it slowly quieted over time. When I do have it, it's not constant and consistent. It's like sharp and like sporadic. Like, I'm trying to think of an analogy, but I can't find one. Just, it happens sporadic and randomly sharp pains in my wrist, my thumb, and stuff like a needle coming out of my skin.
So Natalie, we talked a lot about your physical limitations and healing. What about your emotions? What were they like directly after? Did you have some emotional issues after this?
I'd like to say yeah.
I'm sorry?
I'd like to say yes.
In what way?
Afterwards, I couldn't place where my emotions were. If you told me how I was feeling, I would say I was okay or I'm fine, because I couldn't find the correct adjective to use.
Okay.
I guess now I would use the word distraught, dazed.
Okay.
I couldn't. I had PTSD afterwards. Even now, my brain now goes towards possibilities, and just everyday things. Driving, I think someone could crash into our car right now, send us flying off the road, and we could all die. When someone knocks on the door in my classroom, I think, do they have a gun? Before I think, oh, it's Alex coming back from the bathroom. I'm just using a random name.
We talked about you doing physical therapy for your physical limitations. Are you doing counseling for your emotional issues?
Yes.
Okay, and how's that going?
It's going good. I haven't had any in about 2 months, but that's just personal stuff with scheduling. But I'm going to be back in counseling soon.
Okay.
And I was in therapy before the shooting as well.
So Natalie, I don't have any more questions for you, but the defense may have some. Thank you very much.
Cross. No question, Your Honor. Thank you. Thank you. Good to go.
Oh, our thoughts and prayers go out to that brave young lady. She's been through an awful lot and still has a long way to go.